There comes a time in every woman's life when the mirror stops being just a reflection and starts becoming a conversation. A conversation with the strongest, most beautiful version of herself, a version shaped not by ease, but by experience. Today, we aren't just talking about success. We're talking about transformation. We are talking about the sacred journey of becoming a blessed, strong woman. A true power begins not in the hands, nor in the voice, but in the mind that learns to understand itself. Every individual carries within them a silent instrument more potent than any external weapon. The ability to know their own mind, to recognize their own feelings, to name their own desires and fears without shrinking from them. Self-awareness is the first and greatest cornerstone upon which the edifice of strength is built. Without it, even the most brilliant mind can be led astray by the tides of circumstance and the whispers of doubt. A woman who is growing into her blessed, strongest form does not flinch when her emotions arise. She does not battle her anger as if it were her enemy, nor suppress her sorrow as if it were her shame. Instead, she observes them as she would watch clouds pass across the sky, acknowledging their presence, understanding their origin, learning their lessons. She understands that emotions are neither good nor evil. They are simply signals, messengers from the deeper places of the heart and soul, guiding her toward a fuller understanding of herself. In the practice of self-awareness, judgment falls away. There is no longer the frantic need to label every action or thought as right or wrong, success or failure. Instead, there is a quiet and patient study of oneself. Why did I act in this way? What fear drove that decision? What hope lit that path? These questions are asked not with harshness, but with curiosity, for growth is never born from cruelty, but from compassionate inquiry. As she grows, she realizes that the opinions of others, once loud and demanding, begin to fade in their importance. The approval or criticism of the world no longer defines her worth, because she has anchored her value in something unshakable, her own understanding of who she is. With this understanding, she becomes unmovable. Like a tree with deep roots, she may sway in the storms of life, but she will not fall. The woman who seeks to master herself knows that knowledge alone is not enough. Knowledge must be paired with honesty. She dares to look in the mirror without illusions. She does not excuse her weaknesses, but neither does she condemn herself for them. She sees them clearly, accepts them bravely, and commits to the daily, sometimes invisible, work of transforming them. She knows that real transformation is not an overnight event, but a lifelong pursuit, one built brick by brick, day by day, in the quiet choices she makes when no one is watching. This inner work, invisible to the outer world, is what prepares her for the visible achievements that will come. Many seek success by chasing external markers, but she knows better. She plants seeds within first, tending to the garden of her spirit with diligence and patience. She understands that the harvest without cannot come before the sowing within. As self-awareness deepens, another beautiful shift occurs. She begins to embrace solitude, not as a retreat from life, but as a sacred meeting with herself. Where once silence may have felt heavy or frightening, it now becomes a sanctuary. In solitude, she finds that her mind can speak freely, her soul can stretch out fully, and her truest dreams can rise to the surface without fear of judgment. Solitude is misunderstood by many. They see it as a sign of loneliness, as evidence of rejection or failure. But she knows better. Solitude, chosen willingly, is a demonstration of strength. It is the space where true ideas are born, where real healing takes place, where clarity sharpens and deepens. In solitude, she becomes acquainted not with loneliness but with herself, and in that acquaintance, she finds treasures no crowd could ever offer. In the quiet, she listens, not to the endless chatter of the outer world, but to the subtle, steady voice within her. That voice, once drowned by the noise of others' opinions and society's expectations, grows louder and clearer in the stillness. It tells her which path is hers to walk. It reminds her of her worth when the world tries to make her forget. It reveals to her the dreams that are truly hers, not the ones she was told to chase. Through solitude, she discovers that true connection begins within. The woman who enjoys her own company does not cling desperately to others. She does not fear being alone because she has built a friendship with her own heart. Relationships, when they come, are chosen freely, not out of need but out of genuine love and respect. She shares her life not because she requires validation, but because she delights in mutual growth and connection. As this habit of returning to solitude becomes a part of her life, she also becomes less reactive to the chaos around her. While others rush from distraction to distraction, from approval to approval, she moves with a calm center. Decisions are no longer made from fear or desperation, but from clarity and conviction. She has touched a stillness within herself that nothing outside of her can shake. Every great achievement begins first as a silent seed within the mind. Every strong woman, every blessed leader, every soul who leaves a mark on the world, first sat alone with herself and chose to understand who she was and who she intended to become. Solitude and self-awareness are not luxuries, they are necessities. They are the forge in which strength is shaped, the soil from which the richest blessings grow. A woman who embraces these practices does not need to shout her strength to the world. It is evident in the way she carries herself, in the choices she makes, in the peace that follows her even into the storms of life. Her strength does not come from dominance but from understanding. Her blessing does not come from luck but from preparation. She has taken the time to build herself from the inside out, and nothing that is built so carefully can be easily destroyed. Thus, the woman who knows herself, who honors her need for solitude, becomes unstoppable not because she fights harder than others, but because she stands on a foundation more solid than the fleeting approval of the world. She builds her life, day by day, from the deepest truths within her, and because she is true to herself, the world cannot help but recognize her light. There is a sacred truth that every strong and blessed woman eventually discovers the limits she sets around her life, determine the peace she carries within it. Boundaries are not walls built from fear, they are gates built from wisdom. They are not meant to shut others out, but to keep the light within protected from forces that would try to dim it. Every life worth living must be defended by a set of invisible lines, drawn not in anger but in love for oneself and for the destiny one is determined to fulfill. The woman who is growing into her highest power realizes that not everyone can be given access to her mind, her time, her spirit. She recognizes that the energy she carries is precious and that it must be guarded with vigilance, for what is given away carelessly is often lost forever. She no longer entertains those who seek only to drain her. She no longer sacrifices her well-being for the approval of those who do not honor her value. Her yes becomes rare and meaningful because she has learned the power of a strong and steady no. At first, this building of boundaries may feel foreign, even uncomfortable. The world often teaches women that to be good is to be endlessly accommodating, to be kind is to be endlessly available. But wisdom teaches otherwise. True kindness does not mean setting oneself on fire to keep others warm. True goodness includes the courage to protect one's own heart, mind, and spirit from those who would misuse them. The woman who honors her boundaries begins to walk differently through the world. She no longer begs for acceptance, because she has already accepted herself. She no longer fears rejection, because she knows that not every door closed is a loss, often it is a blessing. She no longer compromises her values to belong, because she understands that any place requiring her to shrink is unworthy of her presence. With every boundary she sets, she teaches others how to treat her. She no longer needs to explain herself endlessly. Her life becomes the explanation. Her confidence, her peace, her radiance. These are the proof that her boundaries are not acts of selfishness, but acts of sacred stewardship over her own soul. Boundaries are not about control, they are about clarity. They bring order to relationships, to work, to the very structure of life itself. They allow the woman to move freely within the spaces that nourish her while avoiding the traps that would deplete her. They create an environment where her dreams can take root and grow without being trampled by the careless feet of those who do not understand their value. Alongside the practice of setting boundaries comes another profound transformation, the daily practice of gratitude. Gratitude is the lens through which the woman views her life, not as a series of random events, but as a tapestry woven with meaning. Gratitude turns the mundane into the miraculous, the ordinary into the extraordinary. It shifts the focus from what is lacking to what is abundant, from what has gone wrong to what is still beautifully right. Gratitude is not merely a polite thank you said in moments of ease. It is a powerful force that, when practiced daily, transforms the very nature of existence. The woman who chooses gratitude chooses to see opportunities where others see obstacles. She chooses to find lessons where others find only losses. She chooses to celebrate small victories that others overlook in their restless pursuit of the next big thing. This practice does not blind her to pain or injustice. She does not pretend that suffering does not exist. Rather, she learns to hold both truth and gratitude in the same hand. She can acknowledge what is hard without surrendering to bitterness. She can name her struggles without allowing them to consume her vision. Gratitude does not erase hardship. It gives her the strength to endure and overcome it. Each morning becomes a fresh canvas for her gratitude. She gives thanks not just for the obvious blessings, health, home, loved ones, but for the less visible ones as well, the strength gained from yesterday's trials, the clarity born from moments of doubt, the unexpected kindness of a stranger. She understands that every experience, whether sweet or bitter, is a thread contributing to the rich fabric of her life. Gratitude also changes how she views herself. Where once she may have seen only flaws, she now sees resilience. Where once she criticized her own reflection, she now honors the story her eyes, her hands, her heart have lived. She becomes her own ally instead of her harshest critic, and this self-appreciation empowers her to move through the world with quiet confidence. As gratitude takes root, her relationships flourish. She no longer demands perfection from others because she is too busy appreciating the goodness they already offer. She becomes generous with praise, quick to forgive, slow to take offense. This does not make her naive, it makes her wise. She understands that perfection is an illusion, and that the true measure of a relationship is not in its flawlessness, but in its mutual commitment to growth and understanding. Gratitude anchors her to the present moment. It keeps her from living constantly in the future, chasing some imagined point of arrival. It reminds her that the life she dreams of is not waiting for her someday far off. It is unfolding now, in the small moments, in the quiet victories, in the acts of courage and kindness that fill her everyday existence. As she practices gratitude, her very presence becomes a light in a world often overshadowed by complaint and negativity. Without preaching, without demanding, she invites others into a better way of living simply by modeling it herself. Her life becomes a testament to the truth that happiness is not something found, it is something cultivated, something chosen again and again, even on the hardest days. The woman who builds her life upon strong boundaries and daily gratitude carries within her a power that no external force can take away. She has crafted a life that honors her soul's highest calling, a life that welcomes growth, resilience, and there is a profound difference between a life lived for comfort and a life lived for growth. The one who pursues only comfort may find temporary ease but will miss the rich, unshakable rewards that only growth can bring. Comfort is a seductive master, whispering promises of safety, predictability, and rest. Yet comfort, when clung to too tightly, becomes a prison disguised as a paradise. It lulls the spirit into stagnation, dims the fire of ambition, and silences the voice that calls one toward their higher purpose. The woman who is becoming strong and blessed learns early that the easy path rarely leads to the mountaintop. She accepts discomfort not as a punishment, but as a signpost that she is stretching beyond her previous limits. She understands that growth requires stepping into the unknown, facing the trembling hands, the racing heart, and the small voice of fear, and continuing anyway. She knows that every worthwhile achievement was once cradled in uncertainty, risk, and courage. In this pursuit of growth, she welcomes challenges rather than avoiding them. She leans into the hard conversations, the difficult decisions, the moments when quitting seems easier than continuing. She knows that each obstacle contains a lesson uniquely designed to strengthen her character and sharpen her wisdom. Every difficulty is an invitation, and she accepts these invitations with open eyes and a willing heart. This devotion to growth reshapes her entire perspective on failure. No longer does she fear mistakes, for she recognizes that mistakes are the raw material of mastery. Each setback becomes a stepping stone. Each disappointment becomes a teacher. Where others see defeat, she sees refinement. Where others shrink away, she leans forward, committed to the process even when the prize remains out of sight. Growth demands sacrifice, and she embraces it. She willingly exchanges short-term comfort for long-term fulfillment. She forgoes fleeting pleasures for enduring achievement. She trades the false security of the familiar for the thrilling uncertainty of becoming more than she has ever been. She knows that while comfort may offer a soft bed, only growth can offer a soaring spirit. In choosing growth over comfort, she also unlocks a deeper truth, that who she becomes is far more important than what she accomplishes. Titles, possessions, applause, these may come and go. But the strength forged in the fires of challenge, the wisdom gathered through seasons of struggle, the resilience cultivated through relentless effort, these are treasures no one can take from her. And in the midst of this relentless pursuit of growth, something remarkable happens to her spirit. Kindness, once seen as a delicate and fragile thing, transforms into something fierce, unwavering, and profound. No longer does she offer kindness out of fear of being disliked or in hopes of earning favor. Her kindness becomes an expression of her strength, not a plea for acceptance. The woman who embodies fierce kindness understands that true compassion requires courage. It is easy to be kind when everyone agrees, when conditions are perfect, when kindness is met with gratitude. It is far harder and far more powerful to remain kind in the face of hostility, ingratitude, or misunderstanding. She chooses to be kind even when it costs her, because her kindness is rooted not in external circumstances, but in her unwavering character. This kind of kindness does not bend or break under pressure. It does not change with the opinions of others. It stands firm, like an oak tree weathering every storm. Her kindness does not ask, "What will I get in return?" but instead declares, "This is who I choose to be." It is not weakness to show mercy. It is not naivety to offer grace. It is the highest form of strength to remain tender in a world that often rewards hardness. She understands that kindness is a force, not a favor. It transforms rooms, opens doors, melts barriers, and sows seeds that grow into opportunities unseen by the cold and the harsh. But she is also wise. Her kindness is not blind. She does not allow herself to be used or manipulated under the false banner of goodness. She knows when to withdraw, when to protect herself, when to say no with a spirit of peace rather than resentment. For true kindness, like true growth, must begin first with oneself. In extending fierce kindness to herself, she sets the standard for how she treats others. She silences the inner critic who would belittle her efforts. She speaks to herself with the same encouragement she offers to a struggling friend. She forgives herself for past mistakes and celebrates even her smallest victories. And in doing so, she creates a wellspring of compassion from which she can freely pour into the lives of those around her. Her kindness becomes an act of leadership, inspiring others not through grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but through the quiet power of her example. She becomes a living reminder that strength and gentleness are not opposites, but allies, that the mightiest hearts are those that dare to remain open, that the most powerful souls are those that choose love over fear, even when fear seems justified. In a world often dominated by selfishness, cruelty, and indifference, her fierce kindness stands out as a beacon. She becomes a safe harbor for those seeking refuge, a catalyst for change in places that have grown cold, a silent revolutionary, challenging the idea that success requires the sacrifice of one's humanity. Every day, in ways both large and small, she recommits to growth over comfort, to fierce kindness over hardened indifference. It is not an easy path, but it is a worthy one. It demands much of her, but it gives her even more. It refines her, strengthens her, elevates her. And through this sacred journey, she becomes not only a woman of achievement, but a woman of profound influence, touching lives and transforming hearts simply by being who she was always meant to become: joy. She becomes a beacon for others, not because she seeks attention, but because the light she has kindled within her cannot help but shine outward. One of the surest signs of growth in any soul is the ability to walk away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but with dignity and peace. To walk away with grace is an art mastered only by those who have come to understand their own worth and have ceased to bargain it away for fleeting comfort or hollow validation. It is a practice born not of pride but of self-respect, not of arrogance but of wisdom. The woman who has matured into her strength knows that not every battle is hers to fight. Not every relationship is hers to fix. Not every situation requires her presence to validate its worth. She no longer clings desperately to what no longer serves her growth. She no longer sacrifices her peace to hold together something broken beyond her responsibility to repair. She recognizes that sometimes the highest form of love, for both herself and others, is found not in staying, but in letting go. Walking away with grace is not a resignation to failure. It is a conscious choice to honor one's own journey. It is the decision to step aside when paths diverge, when values no longer align, when efforts are met with indifference or hostility. It is the quiet power to close a chapter with gratitude for the lessons learned rather than resentment for the pain endured. In doing so, she frees herself to continue her pursuit of growth, unburdened by the weight of what was never meant to stay. To walk away with grace requires an inner richness that cannot be faked. It demands that she have already secured within herself the validation she once sought from others. It demands that she believe, deep in her spirit, that her worth is non-negotiable, her purpose non-disposable. It demands that she trusts that walking alone for a season is infinitely better than walking alongside those who diminish her light. This practice, difficult as it may be, creates a soul both resilient and tender. It teaches her that endings are not punishments, but invitations to new beginnings. It teaches her that by closing one door with grace, she opens countless others with readiness. It teaches her that what is meant for her cannot be lost through honesty, and what is not meant for her cannot be secured through force. When she walks away, she does so without slamming doors or burning bridges. She leaves the space as she found it, perhaps even better, carrying with her only what serves her soul. She leaves without elaborate explanations, without the need to wound or win. Her exit is her exclamation point, a final act of self-respect in a story already complete. Behind this grace lies something even more potent, a foundation built on unshakable faith, for no woman can walk away from the familiar, from the seemingly necessary, without a deep and abiding trust that something better awaits her beyond the horizon. Faith becomes her cornerstone, her guiding star, her steady anchor in a world that often feels unpredictable and harsh. Faith is not mere hope, wishful thinking, or blind optimism. Faith is a disciplined belief, nurtured through experience, forged in adversity, and strengthened by every trial she has survived. It is the unwavering conviction that she is being led, even when the path is unclear, that her efforts are not in vain, even when results are slow to appear, that her life has meaning and purpose, even when circumstances attempt to suggest otherwise. The woman who builds her life on faith does not panic at delays or detours. She understands that life's timing rarely matches human impatience. She trusts the seasons of waiting just as much as the seasons of harvest. She recognizes that what is sown in obscurity blooms in its appointed time. Her faith teaches her to persist when lesser motivations would have given out. It teaches her to rise after each fall, to begin again after each disappointment, to stay steady when others waver. Faith also grants her a remarkable boldness. She is willing to take risks others shy away from, not because she is reckless, but because she believes deeply in her own resilience. She knows that failure is not fatal, that mistakes are not identities, that setbacks are not signs to quit, but invitations to grow stronger. Faith fuels her audacity to dream bigger, to act bolder, to live freer. Moreover, her faith transforms the way she sees the unseen forces at work in her life. No longer does she attribute success solely to her own cleverness or failure solely to bad luck. She perceives a divine orchestration, a hidden order in what seems chaotic, a reason within the uncertainty. This perception grants her peace in the storms of life, courage in the valleys, and humility on the mountaintops. Faith teaches her that she is never truly alone, even in her loneliest hours. It assures her that even in silence, she is being prepared, even in darkness, she is being shaped. It reminds her that every prayer uttered into the emptiness is heard, that every act of goodness sown into the seeming void will yield a harvest in due time. With faith as her foundation, she is not easily swayed by the opinions of others. The world may call her foolish for believing in what she cannot yet see. But she knows that every masterpiece begins first as an invisible vision in the heart of its creator. She holds fast to her vision, even when circumstances whisper otherwise, for she understands that reality bends to persistence bathed in belief. Thus, through the dual powers of walking away with grace and standing firm upon her faith, she becomes a woman unshaken by the turbulence around her. She moves through life not as a victim of chance, but as a conscious co-creator of her destiny. Her steps are deliberate, her choices intentional, her spirit undefeatable. She does not rush to prove herself to anyone, for she understands that her life itself is the proof. She does not chase after fleeting applause, for her soul is nourished by a deeper validation. She does not fear the unknown, for she has learned that every unknown eventually becomes familiar when met with faith. And so she walks, sometimes alone, sometimes accompanied. But always forward, always upward, always with the quiet, fierce confidence of a woman who knows her worth, trusts her path, and believes, without reservation, that her best is not behind her but forever ahead. There comes a sacred turning point in a woman's journey when the voices of the world grow dim against the steady, rising clarity of her own inner voice. At first, she may have sought guidance in every external source she could find: the opinions of friends, the expectations of family, the shifting standards of society. She may have measured her worth by others' approval, adjusted her path to fit their maps, dimmed her light so it would not offend the eyes of those who preferred the shadows. Yet in the secret places of her soul, she always knew there was another voice. One not forged by fear, not shaped by others' limited visions, but born of her own divine instinct. This voice never shouted, never demanded, but always knew. It was patient when she was restless, firm when she was wavering, and wise when confusion reigned. The day she finally turned her full attention inward, honoring this quiet guide, her life began to transform from a patchwork of obligations into a masterpiece of purpose. To trust one's inner voice over outer noise is to reclaim sovereignty over one's own destiny. It is to stop waiting for permission to live according to truth. It is to recognize that no committee, no crowd, no critic knows her path better than the whisper that speaks within her heart. She understands that while advice can be valuable, while feedback can be informative, the final authority rests within her own soul. No one else has been entrusted with her vision. No one else has been assigned her mission. Listening to the inner voice requires discipline. In a world filled with noise, distractions, and endless streams of opinion, it is an act of fierce devotion to create stillness long enough to hear the whisper of wisdom within. It is tempting to poll the world before making decisions, to seek consensus before taking steps. But she learns that true power lies not in universal approval, but in authentic alignment. Her compass is internal, not external. The woman who trusts her inner voice walks with a different kind of assurance. Her choices may confuse those who are trapped by convention. Her path may seem lonely to those who seek safety in numbers. But she knows that greatness has never been born in crowds. It has always been the quiet, courageous few who dare to follow the beat of a different drum who change the course of history. She no longer fears making mistakes because she understands that every detour is part of the learning. Even when she stumbles, she does so on her own terms, and there is dignity in that. There is honor in owning her journey fully, mistakes and all, rather than living by the borrowed scripts of others. As her trust in her inner voice deepens, so too does a profound revelation: she is enough, exactly as she is. This realization does not arrive all at once but grows steadily, like the slow but certain unfolding of a sunrise. It is a quiet revolution that overturns the lie she once believed, that she must earn her worth, that she must prove her value, that she must become someone else to deserve love and success. She awakens to the truth that her worth is inherent, not conditional. It was bestowed upon her not by achievement, appearance, wealth, or recognition, but by the very fact of her existence. She realizes that she was not placed on this earth to spend her life chasing approval like a thirsty wanderer chasing a mirage. She was placed here to embody the unique expression of life that only she can offer. When a woman knows she is enough, she becomes a force impossible to contain. She no longer settles for crumbs of attention or scraps of validation. She no longer tolerates environments that require her to shrink, contort, or hide her brilliance. She shows up fully, unapologetically, without the heavy armor of pretense. She speaks her truth without needing to shout, stands her ground without needing to fight, and radiates her presence without needing to seek. Knowing she is enough allows her to extend genuine compassion to others, for she is no longer operating from a place of scarcity. She does not compete in petty games or measure her worth against someone else's highlight reel. She celebrates the victories of others without feeling diminished. She uplifts those around her without fear of losing her own place. Her confidence is expansive, not exclusive. In relationships, she no longer clings from fear or desperation. She gives and receives love freely, knowing that her wholeness does not depend on another's approval or presence. She sets healthy standards, not because she is difficult, but because she understands that love should never cost her her self-respect. In work, she pursues excellence, not perfection. She no longer ties her identity to her performance. She allows herself to grow, to evolve, to try and fail and try again without the crushing weight of self-condemnation. This realization that she is enough liberates her creativity. She takes risks, she paints boldly with the colors of her imagination, she builds and dreams and creates without waiting for someone else's permission slip. She becomes the author of her own story, writing not for applause but for authenticity. Her life becomes a love letter to the very essence of who she is. Knowing she is enough also transforms the way she navigates challenges. Hardships do not convince her she is broken, they remind her she is being refined. Criticism does not deter her, it sharpens her resolve. Setbacks do not shatter her, they become the raw material from which she builds her next breakthrough. Her sense of self is anchored so deeply that no external storm can uproot it. Through trusting her inner voice and embracing her enoughness, she becomes the living embodiment of freedom. Not the superficial freedom of doing whatever she pleases, but the deeper freedom of being exactly who she was created to be. She walks lightly through life, unburdened by the need to impress, unshackled from the chains of comparison, illuminated from within by the fire of authenticity. This is the power of a woman who listens inward rather than outward. This is the strength of a soul who knows she has always been and will always be enough.